okay? I am the boss Chris. This is my co-host, Andrew the Boxing Brain.
Wallet.
And the topic of the day is, I think Eubank Jr. beats him again.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
But it's just, I don't know what it is, yeah, but there's something wrong with Conor Ben. Like, he needs to just calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're angry, but he did that. Like, he does it in the future. Like, it's all right sometimes when you're fighting lesser opposition, you kind of just outwork your way through to the win, don't you? So, but when you're fighting someone who's been at world level, who's 2 weight classes above, like, and that's Eubank Jr. at his worst. Weight drains, can't make the weight. He's 35. You know, he hasn't really had a really big, significant win in years. So that is him at his worst. Yeah, you can't beat him at your best because that's Conor Ben's best right now.
I guess what I would say to that though is I still think Conor Ben's still got much to improve on, and I guess what I'd add to that though is that I know where you're going with it, but I suppose this was his first time at middleweight. You know, he also had to make sort of, I don't know about sacrifices, but you know, he's been fairly inactive. First time going up to 160. I was actually, I'm sure you was as well, but I was fairly. I mean, there's loads of stuff he can make adjustments to. The nervous energy, you know, really you know, blowing his low. It was like kind of early Anthony Yarde, you know, he maybe wants to learn a bit from kind of Anthony Yarde now, blowing his low too soon. And he'll learn these things, and I'm sure Tony Sims are kind of get that out of him. What was I going to say on that? I think Ben can be even, but I think he can be better. Whether that's good enough, I think Conor Ben can be better, a lot better. But as to, especially going into another fight middleweight, and he's used to it. He's used to what Eubank Jr. is going to bring. He'll make adjustments, maybe be a bit calm. I can see him being better. As to whether that'll be good enough to beat him, no, I don't think so. Yeah.
I just wish, like, one thing, like, it just needs to calm down. But the thing is, like, if you think about his last 3 fights, that have been with Tony Sims, I don't know if it's because of all the drug shit. He didn't know if he had a license, but he was like that in them fights. Look how he was fighting Dobson. He was just running at him like a maniac, just letting his hands go, loading up, reckless abandonment. Then what happened? He started gassing at the end of the fight, and that Dobson started tagging him. And that Dobson is slow as. And he was timing him and tagging him because he had wasted all his energy. He didn't have his reflexes. So when he's coming in a little bit slower, coming out back in straight lines. Yeah, and I don't know if it's Tony Sims. Like, Tony Sims is a great coach, but I don't think he's listening to him. Maybe you don't respect him because you've known him for so long since he's been a little kid, and they got, like, you know, sometimes when you have like someone who's like more like a brother or like a father figure. And then you haven't got the fear. You don't respect him. You're just like, yeah. But you know that you can get away with things. Or because he just needs to calm down. And like, he doesn't need to load up with every shot. He doesn't need to like bounce around. And what's the point in doing loads of feints, if they're not going for him? Like, try it a few times, but don't just keep doing it constantly and then throw. You know, like, it just
we'll get on to Ben now because we'll come across, because we kind of gone through Eubank Jr. We'll come to him now, but I think I know what you're saying off the back of what you were saying. They're kind of learning that experience in the ring at that top level, because it was obviously the best fight, the best fighter he's been in against, and try and soften up his weight, vary up the power a little bit, and kind of mix things up a little bit. So I know where you're going. We kind of gone through this anyway, but how much of, because I actually genuinely, I mean, I genuinely think he put on, he did about as good as he could do in there. I mean, of course there are improvements he can make, and I'll ask you this in a minute, but how much of a factor, first time at middleweight, inactivity. He alluded to this anyway. I know part of that self-inflicted. Lack of top-level experience. Outside of Eubank Jr., his best wins are Vargas, whose punch resistance looks shot to bits. Good first-round KO, and Chris Algieri, who was washed up as well. How much of all those factors do you think was a reason why he couldn't get the win last night? Huge factors, or break it down for me, I guess is it.
Okay, yes and no. I'll keep this short and sweet. There is factors because of jumping up to first fight at middleweight, but he isn't a middleweight and he shouldn't be fighting.
Yeah, he's a 147 fighter, isn't he? Yeah.
And he's never going to win at middleweight. He's never going to beat anyone, any half decent middleweight. He's never going to beat anyone at middleweight. Never. He's a light middleweight, and he's either light middleweight or welterweight. I think he's fucked himself now, trying to go back to welterweight. It's going to be really hard for him. So,
you made a good point there, Chris, because I was looking at, I think he said Chris Eubank Sr. come out the ring, and he was giving Conor Ben a lot of praise. Actually, said, look, he was complaining actually that. That's a question. Then, do you think Chris Eubank Sr. was right? He was talking to Gareth A. Davis, who I can't fucking stand, and he said, look, this guy's a 147 fighter. He needs to fight a 147. He's not been managed correctly, and he was basically essentially slagging off the team around. Do you think Chris Eubank Sr. was on point with that? Do you think he was right?
Absolutely. He was a 147 fighter, but if you think he's had 2 fights in 2 years, that Dobson and some other guy before that, right? And they were both at light middleweight, Then he's had his
and he didn't knock him out
in the 3rd year at middleweight, So the past 3 years he's been fighting at light middleweight and middleweight, and he's 28. By the time he gets another fight, he's going to be just getting on the wrong side of his 20s, and then now he's just going to boil himself right down to welterweight. He's going to have to ease himself back.
That's what I was thinking. Because you look at the middleweight division. If he's I can't see him staying there, right? I know he had Denzel Bentley in his camp, really good sparring. He doesn't beat Denzel Bentley, right? Even at British level, right? Brad Paul's good pressure fighter, solid. I mean, the ones he probably beats, I think, is Nathan Heaney, Tyler Denny, guys like that, not big punchers. Other than that, Chris, he should start. Look, I'm a fan of Conor. Forget all I like him. I don't know what it is. Maybe I think I'm slightly biased, if I'll be honest. I don't dislike Eubank and Eubank Jr. either, but Nigel Benn is one of my favourite fighters, as you know. So I've got a little bit of an emotional resonance with Conor, I think, and I don't know. I like explosive, ferocious. I know it's because I can tell how frustrated you were. We're like, bloody calm down. But I love his tenacity, and his dad was the same. I love his tenacity and will to win. And his punch. By the way, here's a question just off the top of my head. He showed a fair amount of a significant amount of heart and good punch resistance in there. I felt. I was surprised.
So,
but have you?
My counter.
Go for it.
Is
I know what you're going to say. Eubank Jr. was drained.
It's not just because he was drained. If you watch, he wasn't turning over his punches. He was and then he'd turn over the odd 1 or 2 in a round, but he was conserving his energy. So when he was hitting him clean, there was nothing on. There was nothing on the punches. There were nothing on them, really. Obviously, they hurt because he still punches, but it was that power in there wasn't Eubank Jr.'s power. That was power of welterweight or something. He's not really known as a massive puncher, Eubank Jr. He's a volume puncher, isn't he? And then I think the reason I was saying that, there was that uppercut he caught him with, and I thought Conor Ben took that really well. But it's difficult to know. As you say, maybe there weren't that much mustard on it. I don't know. But he showed I think he showed a decent amount in there. A decent amount of skills, a decent amount of improvements he can make that
maybe super welterweight, that he could go and maybe do something at super welterweight. But okay, here's my next question for you, Chris. What would you say is Conor Benn's ceiling? 28. Where do you think? Where can he get to? Does he go all the way? World title?
If you think like so, if you look at 154, they've got some killers in there.
I know.
It just, I can't. I really can't comment because
I know.
it's like
difficult question.
He's not getting better. So we need to see him improve against good opposition. Because obviously he blown through Chris Algieri, he blew through Van Erden, the Sam Vargas fight got stopped too early. So he's not really, and then his last fights that have gone the distance, he's just beat them on pure youth and energy. He's not beat them by boxing well and head movement and jabbing and setting traps.
Yeah, he's got to learn that. I guess.
And then he's met an old veteran.
Yeah.
And he does work. And that doesn't work on old.
Because he's a similar age. If we compare him to the brilliant Boots Ennis, right, a welterweight that's probably going to move up to 154, right? They're a similar age. I think Boots Ennis is 29, is he? Is he 28, 29, 30? Yeah. If you look like Boots Ennis, Golden Gloves champion, brilliant amateur, skills for days, can mix it up. We've seen him rise his level. When Stanionis, Chuk, he's rising his levels. So now this is where we got to be a bit realistic, right? He's a similar age to Boots Ennis. You see, Boots Ennis is kind of going like this, right? You think, fucking hell, his ceiling's huge. Conor Benn's nowhere near that. He's nowhere near. Let's be honest. And I like it. I'm just we pride ourselves on having integrity. Just because I like him, he's nowhere near that. Nowhere near. And it's not like he's 21. Like, he's not 22, 21, like Adam Azim, right? Adam Azim's got 6 years to rip. He's 28, 27, 28. I think, look, he's going, I want to fight Barrios, right, for the WBC belt, right? He wants that British. Yeah. Okay, right, fair enough. He's probably, Barrios is no great shakes. Okay. I think he should be looking at British title, Commonwealth. What's wrong with going down that route? He's going, no, I want world title. Like, coming out straight away, I want the rematch, and then I want Barrios back down in weight. Too much, too soon.
Too much, exactly. There's no way, that he can fight at welterweight now. He can't fight back. If his next fight's against Barrios, he's gonna lose. You need a fight to get used. Like, have you ever heard of fighters, like who fight up at higher weight classes, 3 fights in a row for 3 years, then move down? Yeah, maybe one fight, Kell Brook or like Roy Jones Jr. for one fight, then they come back down. You don't do it for 3 years in a row and then think, oh yeah, I'm just gonna slide back into welterweight for a world title.
And you carry weight as you get older. You make a good point with this, and I know you know a lot about this with your strength and conditioning business and that expertise, but he's put on 20, 25 pounds of muscle, right, the last couple of years, right? People are going to make comments about how he's done it, all the rest of it, right? At the end of the day, he's gone through the drugs test now, and he's done it, cleanly. We certainly hope so anyway. He's put on that muscle mass, all that muscle memory. We know how it works. He's 28, he's in the prime. His testosterone, right, it is a peak between 25 and 30. That ain't easy just to cut all that muscle mass off, going back down to 147, because especially if he genetically looks very gifted. He's probably one of those guys that lifts weights, does his strength and conditioning, and bulks up quite nice. So it's not like you say. I don't think he's going to be able to boil that weight off too easy, Chris, is he? At all?
No, not. He's not going to be healthily. Like, he needs to have a fight at welterweight.
Yeah.
At first, against British title, Commonwealth, European title.
That's the route.
Level, and then go for the Barrios fight. Even if he loses his mandatory, get it back. He's young enough. But if he rushes into a title fight, he's going to lose again. Like if it's at
He don't
147.
seem to want to go that route, which is weird, isn't it? But so my last, I guess, kind of coming to the roundup with Bennett and this conversation in general, and I think you were talking about this a bit before, but what in the rematch, or if and when the rematch happens, what would Ben need to improve on in order to win? Or would it be too much to talk about? It'd be another video.
No, this is what it needs to. This is what it needs to improve.
Or is it not that much?
It needs to. Yeah, I'd say it needs to, one thing. It needs to think about what he's doing. Like slow the pace down. Like at times, like he can't. Like he can rush in at bursts, but then if he doesn't have any success, just calm down. Start throwing his jab out. Start trying to slip. And when he does, when he is rolling under the shots, he should have been ripping to the body. He should have been going under, but he kept going for the overhand right because he landed it a couple of times. And he just needed, and don't ever back up in straight lines because he started back.
It's a bit of a fundamental one, that one, isn't it? A fundamental.
Right. He's just, because he in his idea, it's just like, just run at them, bounce around, throw loads of haymakers, load up on every shot.
Yeah.
And then he thinks he wins the round. And then he did win like about 4 rounds in a row. Then he started gassing. Then he started getting counted, getting timed because he's a little bit slower. He needs to pace.
So, little added question on top of it. Do you think, and I'm look, perhaps I'm being harsh here, but do you think he maybe lacks a fair amount of ring IQ? Is that a big issue? Do you think?
Yeah, ring IQ, generalship, like because he was loading up on everything, and he just just landing the shots is good enough. Land a couple of punches, don't get greedy because he's got the lesser reach. Get out, circle around, pace around, and then when you do let your hands go and you do find yourself and you're having a tear up, it's a surprise. Yeah. It's not a surprise if you're hitting them with the same power every single time. Because they get used to it.
We know this, don't we? It's such a big thing that with that schooling and that IQ is kind of varying your shots up, obviously touching, vary up the power a little bit, and then bang, come in with something heavier. Because someone like Eubank Jr., who's been around the block now, has been in there with Groves, Billy Joe Saunders, Liam Smith twice, who was, wily campaigner. He's wise in there, and you could see him sort of like figuring Conor Benn out and knowing what he was going to do. And probably it did look like to me in there, Chris, that Chris Eubank Jr., after he got wobbled early, because Conor Benn did have him hurt quite early and maybe got a bit erratic. But Eubank Jr. sort of got used to the power. It looked to me like he got accustomed to it fairly quickly, and kind of thought, okay, I can deal with this. Not much more to add for me on that really. Sub, please. We're trying to get to 1,000. Our next goal is to get to 1,000, 1K, that milestone. So if anybody who's just, and I know who you are, you're watching it, you're checking us out, and you can't be bothered to press the like, it's right there. Just press it like that, right? It really helps.